Joining us at the moment is a lawyer and a former Canadian lawmaker. Goldie Ghamari is of Iranian descent, and she's been a very harsh critic of the regime there in Iran. Thank you so much for speaking to Times Now, Goldie Ghamari. Now, in the past, you've referred to the regime in Iran as a brutal Islamic dictatorship. And when, in fact, you see that President Trump comes out to say that Iranians must seize control of their destiny, what are you seeing happen? Because at the moment, it's been a few days since Ali Khamenei was killed, but Iran appears to be fighting back.
Well, of course, the regime is in its final throes, and that's of course expected. But we've also heard many people affiliated with the Islamic regime, they have defected. We've also heard that many people have been exterminated by Israel and the United States, and Iranians are very grateful for that. So, President Trump said yesterday that he expected this military campaign to take about 4 weeks. He said they're already way ahead of schedule. So I have a feeling that the situation is not going to last much longer. And very soon, when the military operation is done and the Islamic regime is destroyed, then Iranian people will have an opportunity to go out and reclaim the country.
Right. But, while we're seeing pictures, of course, we saw a lot of pictures of those protests. There were several hundreds, if not thousands of protesters who were killed as well by the regime. While all that is, of course, being recorded, it's also a fact that there are also several Iranians who are coming out to mourn Ayatollah Khamenei. So what are we looking at? How divided is Iran as a society today when it comes to these issues?
Not very divided at all. There is, of course, a very small percentage of Iranians who support the Islamic regime. I would say maybe somewhere between 5 to 10% maybe of the entire population. But we're talking about a country of 100 million people. So that means there's at least 90 million Iranians who are against the regime. The people who are coming out in support of the regime, they're either part of the regime, they're friends and family members, people affiliated and working with the regime, or, they're coming out because they get paid to do so. The footage that we have seen of, people who are mourning the death of Ali Khamenei, the dictator, a lot of it is actually AI footage. A lot of it is footage from 2020. And what we're actually seeing is very, very small numbers of people, somewhere between 50 to 100 people that are really going out and mourning in different parts of the country.
Right. You've also said that, there are a large number of Iranians who are living, working abroad, who are willing to come back to help, contribute to their country, to help rebuild the country. How far are we from some kind of a mass uprising against the regime? Do you see that realistically happening? Because the Revolutionary Guard, etc., seem to have a huge say in how things are functioning, at least at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. The uprising is happening. So right now, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, they're in the process of being destroyed. President Trump has made it very clear that you can lay down your arms and surrender, or you will be exterminated. So many of them have already surrendered. They're putting out messages saying, we've surrendered, we've given up our uniforms, we've given up our arms. And of course, those who have not surrendered are systematically being executed right across the country. What President Trump has said right now is to stay home, stay inside, because it is not safe to go out because of the military campaign. And once the military campaign is over, then Iranians can go out and reclaim the country. And we actually have a leader, Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, who has a transition plan in place. He has a transitional government that's ready to go. And he has said to Iranians as well, stay inside right now and stay safe. When the time is right, he is going to give the signal, and upon his signal, Iranians are going to go out and reclaim the country.
Okay, but how do we know that, Reza Pahlavi, of course, has put his hat in the ring, but how do we see this, transferring automatically to a democratic sort of regime? Because there has been U.S. intervention, for instance, in Afghanistan, and we all know how that ended.
Yeah, well, Iran is not Afghanistan. Iran is not Iraq. Iran, we're a very old civilization, very similar to the Indian civilization. Both of our civilizations and cultures are thousands of years old. So, and we have a shared common history as well. Prior to 1979, Iran was a constitutional monarchy. So we already have a history of democracy and elections. So what we have right now is we have something called the Iran Prosperity Project. It is a 100-page document that outlines exactly the path and the transition plan going from a dictatorship to a democracy. And ultimately, what we are committed to is a national referendum, which is going to determine the type of secular democracy that we want to have. So whether we want to have a constitutional monarchy or a republic. But ultimately, we Iranians were all committed to having a secular democratic society. And the only person that we trust to lead us through that transition is His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi.
Right. We've seen many videos of women coming out and they're celebrating Khamenei's death. We've even seen during the January protests, there were scenes of women who were burning his posters. From what you're hearing, how deep and widespread is this anger amongst Iranian women? And could this become the driving force of any mass uprising if there's one in the future?
Well, the uprising is already happening. The uprising is already happening. The only reason that you're not seeing it yet is because, of course, the bombs are still dropping. So the America and Israel are still attacking Islamic regime bases. So it is not safe for Iranians to go out yet. The Basij are also continuing their campaign, murdering any Iranians who go out. And actually, right now, we are getting reports that the IRGC have abandoned their bases and they are hiding in schools, in hospitals, and in mosques. So very similar to the tactics in Gaza with Hamas. So we're seeing the photos, we're seeing the images, we're sharing it on social media. And that's why we're saying to our Iranian friends in Iran, stay at home, do not go out, because the IRGC right now, they're using schools, hospitals, and mosques as for purposes of human shields.
Right. There are also many who support Khamenei despite his aggressive stances on many issues, while expressing their objection to foreign aggression against Iran. They say it's an attack on the sovereignty of Iran. How do you respond to such apprehensions? Is removing Khamenei a principal responsibility of Iranians rather than Americans or Israelis?
The people who are complaining about this, we have a word for them in Persian. We call them Vatan Furush, which means traitor. So these are the same people who remained silent when Khamenei and his Islamist thugs murdered over 40,000 innocent unarmed Iranians who wanted freedom. So Iranians already tried to let the world know that they want freedom. They tried to do it peacefully and they were gunned down. So the fact that now we have United States and Israel coming to help us, this is in line with the doctrine of responsibility to protect. We Iranians are very, very grateful to Israel and the United States. We could not have eliminated Khamenei on our own. We have been trying to overthrow the regime for 47 years. It is a brutal dictatorship that guns down its own people. So those people who are complaining about this, it's a lie, because we Iranians, we don't see this as an attack on Iranian soil. We see this as liberation. This is basically Israel and the United States coming in and removing a cancer that has taken over our country, and that cancer is the Islamic regime.
Right, and you yourself said that you've been receiving death threats. In your view, what does this really reveal about the Republic's reach and how its power extends beyond its borders?
Yes, well, the Islamic regime is it's the largest sponsor of terrorism around the world. So not only do they fund their Islamic proxies, like Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and others, they also fund terrorist organizations around the world. And they have several, Islamic centers in various countries that are basically used as tools for indoctrination and radicalism. So these death threats should be taken very seriously, because one of the ways the regime has remained in power is by silencing people who speak out against them. So the death threats aren't just against me. There's many other Iranians who've been speaking out, who've been receiving death threats. We take these threats very seriously because they have murdered us in the past. However, we're not going to stop. We know this is the end, and we're gonna fight until Iran is free.
Right. Typically we've seen a lot of anti-America rhetoric coming out of Iran in the past, but public opinion inside Iran is often described as more nuanced. From your reading of the ground mood, how deep is this anti-American sentiment, and how much of it does exist amongst ordinary Iranians today? Is it weakening or hardening in this moment?
So there has never been anti-American sentiment by the regular, normal Iranian people. The anti-American sentiment only comes from the Islamic regime and their jihadi ideology. Prior to 1979, Iran and the United States were very close allies. In fact, Iran was one of the closest allies of the United States, and so that's always been in our culture, in our values as Iranians. It's only when the Islamic regime came and occupied Iran in 1979 that they started their anti-American sentiment against America, against the West, and of course their never-ending jihad. However, I think the world is now seeing that the way that Iranians were portrayed, that was never Iranians. Those were the people who were occupying us and murdering us. And so, there is no anti-American sentiment. If anything, what's happening right now is that more and more Iranians are appreciative of America. And right now, President Trump is more popular in Iran than he is in the United States.
All right. Very interesting point of view there. But one last question before I let you go. The IRGC says that it's ready for a prolonged conflict. They even said that actions around the Straits of Hormuz and regional energy infrastructure are going to be impacted. And they've actually attacked some of those, from UAE to Saudi, some of those important infrastructure points of view. From your assessment, is Tehran preparing for a long war of attrition? And how sustainable would that strategy be for the regime?
Well, President Trump yesterday announced that they had sunk all 11 Navy battleships of the Islamic regime. So the Islamic regime doesn't even have a Navy anymore. So I don't know how they're, going to have a prolonged war when they don't even have a Navy. This is just the Islamic regime lying like they always do. They're a joke. I guarantee you within the next week or so, they're going to be completely exterminated, because in 3 days, President Trump destroyed the entire Navy fleet of the Islamic regime.
All right. Goldie Ghamari, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now.
Thank you so much for having me here.